Hi, I'm Barbara Becker of Barbara Becker Healing. This video is a conversation with Grandmaster Zaysan, and this was recorded on August 9th, 2019. Grandmaster Zaysan is a Shaolin monk and a member of the Table of Ancients. The Table of Ancients are a group of 10 monks who have been around for tens of thousands of years, and they are the keepers of our esoteric knowledge. Grandmaster Zaysan survived the tortuous mental, physical, life or death testing gauntlet of the ancients to become the youngest in the history to succeed in this honor. Grandmaster Zaysan was then released to journey on his path bearing the brands of the dragons on his arms. I've had the pleasure, the honor, the privilege to have been one of his students in Tai Chi and Qigong for the past 16 years. And he also helps me along on my spiritual journey in this human experience. The several topics that we're going to talk about in this conversation are about who created the human body, when does the soul enter the human body, and are all Tai Chi the same and produce the same effects, results, and outcomes. We also talk about Grandmaster Zaysan's passion and mission called the Quest ECSS. The Quest is a worldwide nonprofit organization comprised of volunteer soldiers, nurses, and nuns and others dedicated to rescuing children from the brothels all over the world. And so far, in the past 3 years, they have rescued over 1,600 children. And we'll talk about other subjects too. So I hope you really enjoy this. And if you do, would you please share and like this video? And be sure to read the descriptions below and the links. Check them out. And I hope you enjoy this. And now, Conversations with Z. Hi, Z.
Hello.
I've got some questions for you. It'd be kind of fun to talk about.
Good.
Okay. I've been pondering this for a long time. Have you ever wondered who came up with these bodies? In other words, the human physical form, like who specifically created these human bodies?
Yeah. Same person that made a horse and an ant and everything else.
And I know the bigger picture. I know that, the oneness, yes. But you know how, you wrote your book, okay? Let me plug it right here.
Yeah.
Well, you created that. So, yeah, God created that. But who created this human being? This is amazing.
But what's that movie where they go to the Sphinx and an alien comes down? He said that oh shoot, I can't remember the name of it. It was a fun movie. It's about traveling to Mars. They went through a Stargate.
Oh, Stargate.
Yeah, I think that was called it. And the bad alien guy, they somehow come up. Why did he choose human? And it was because it's so easy to repair.
But there's people out there that are saying, oh, these particular beings created humans and extraterrestrials, and you haven't got a clue?
It doesn't matter to me really.
Okay, but
it's an evolutionary thing, because we were amphibian.
Yeah.
And then we were, was it Anthropithecus, and now I think they've discovered one other breed that was more like a monkey, but we didn't have the round mouth.
Yeah.
That was what set us apart from that. So then we kept evolving. I don't know.
Wow. So, okay, a little deeper. Who created the interface between the body and the soul or spirit?
Well, the soul was here before the body.
Okay.
So the soul probably was the creator of finding space.
All right. Then my next, well, this is my fourth question.
Oh, wait, when you astral travel,
Yeah.
what being are you?
Well, you're not human. You are.
Sometimes you are, but many times you are looking for another experience and you become something else. You don't always know what it is either.
True. Okay.
So could that be reincarnation or just soul hopping?
Yeah. Okay. So here, yeah, I'm going to jump to my fourth question. Talked about this before, but I like to just get it out here for the purpose of this conversation. You know, people have said that the moment that the soul enters the human body within the womb of the mother is anywhere from 42 to 48 days, or 84 to 90 days, or 120 days, which is 4 months. What did you tell me?
2 years.
Okay. So when the child is 2 years old, that's when the soul comes into the human body.
Terrible twos.
Terrible. So why not before?
Well, it can be. I believe that there's got to be a coexistence in order to form a body, but at the same time, you can walk into a body too, if circumstances are right.
Yeah.
And there's permissions.
Yeah. And that's the concept of the walk-ins and the walk-outs, right?
Kinda. You have the 16 levels of heaven, as described in most religions, or the old ancient religions. And so each time that you survive this trip, you can graduate to the next level, and at a certain time you're on free time. And so that means that you can come and go as you please, in a sense. And if a body's leaving, it's not interference. You're just continuing on in another form. But not necessarily do you have all the repercussions that you do when you come to reincarnate, which you get a memory swipe. The subconscious remembers all, but the conscious part of you doesn't, and that's where the danger comes in of like regressions, in my opinion, where you don't want to know those things, who you were and the things that you learned, because you may be here relearning some of those things. And by doing that, you kind of disable the whole point you came here for.
Does the subconscious or the higher self prevent that from happening, though? Don't they have the ability to just give you just one little piece of that life?
No, because you are your higher self. You're just a fragmentation of that higher self.
Yeah.
And all of it's just like, if you look at it, the way it was described to me several times was that you're in a plane of existence. There's a dimension is an aspect of oneself, so you couldn't travel into another dimension. You would have to travel into another plane of existence. And let's say that at any given time, the average amount of lives that you're living is 7, and each of those can be at a different time. And in those different times, it also affects all the others, like a chain. You're still one person, you're just a fragment.
Yeah.
And, so if something really good happens with one of them and they're learning or whatever it may be that they've accomplished, then the others benefit from that, and vice versa. So if you take that as possibility, then look at what your higher self is. And your higher self is a combination of those 7. So they're sent down to make the higher self greater. Mm-hmm. Well, then if you look at the God aspect, the higher self connection to the God aspect, there's fragmentations there too, where your several higher selves are working in order to hire the God. Simple, right?
No, but here's another one. What about spontaneous past life regressions? Like I've had in my life, and I had no control over that. It just shows up. What am I supposed to do?
Well,
no one told me, don't do that. Don't listen. Don't watch. See?
So there's no rules about that.
Oh, and why not?
Just like when you cheat on a test. I mean, maybe it's just to get ahead and you already know that stuff, that sort of thing. Or else that it was part of the plan of your lesson to learn while you were here.
Okay. And so the higher self said, okay, let's show her this because this is going to help her understand that. And then she continues on in the human experience.
Well, not necessarily has a whole lot to do with the higher self. You made the contract before you came here as a fragment to that higher self. So, you're not breaking any contract if that was part of what you were to do. It's just like another old wise guy told me, we're all predestined. We start at A and we end at B. But the thing is that we have free will along that way. So we're always going to reach our destiny. It's just how we reach that destiny that is interpreted by how we do the things that we do in that free will.
All right.
Kind of like picking your parents before you come here.
Yeah.
We all do that.
Yeah. And for many, we wonder why. Until we evolve our consciousness, and then we realize, oh, okay. Grateful.
So we're a higher self, right?
Yeah. So are all Tai Chi instructions, teachings the same? Do they all have the same effect or outcome?
No, not at all.
Could you expand upon that?
It's hard to find anyone who teaches what I would call the real Tai Chi, the way it's been passed down and passed down. What I call a lot of the martial arts and the Tai Chi and the Qigong is fast food, because if you want to actually do it and be meaningful and pass down, what has been passed down to you, you're probably not going to make a whole lot of money because it's all about that person. You're not going to name each move. By naming each move, it doesn't become embedded within your consciousness. So, like breathing and stuff, and each of our bodies are somewhat different. It's kind of like the easiest example is when you can't be taught how to astral travel. You already know how to astral travel, but you need to try to become conscious of it if you choose to. And when you choose to become conscious of leaving your body and stuff, there's a lot of information out there that gives you enough to go on for you to actually experience it consciously. But if you have somebody that's telling you step by step how to get to leaving your body, what you're going to be doing is you stop leaving your body and you start following this person that's telling you how to leave your body and what you can expect each step of the way. That's why I never taught past the first stage about to just relax, get in the place to do it with, and then just be aware, and then do it again and again and again, and eventually it just becomes natural. Just like the Tai Chi, each person's body is somewhat different, as you experienced. There's such a wide variety of people, and I wouldn't compliment anybody. It's not my job to compliment them. They're not here for me. Well, they're not supposed to be. They're here to understand and learn their body, and then slowly but surely you return to a natural state in that sense, because you learn to move the entire body in every move. So you're using so little energy in order to produce so much energy, by using the entire body to make a movement. Like if I want to move my finger, I'm using my entire body to move the finger, where if you use one at a time or you put muscle into it, then you're exhausting a lot of that energy. It's the same way it's Qigong, how we would get in these large groups and it would be freezing cold out, man. Everybody would kind of strip before we got going too far because the heat would start to generate. And then, each person has, it's like the Da Vinci thing where the circle around the body, and, that's your energy field. And, when you have a group of people doing it together and there's some weak ones in there, they'll be taking energy from the strong ones. But they will not be depleting the ones that are strong because they're constantly refilling it, because they're not using more energy than they have. But the weak ones then assume that energy in order to heal or whatever it is that's keeping them from being strong.
Interesting.
Mhm.
I remember one night we were doing qigong, and we're in the your yard, and we're in a big circle, and I think you were to my left, and I know that you have the ability to send energy around the people. And I remember one time, I don't know what I was doing, but that energy came around, and when it hit me, I went flying in the air. I landed behind you, laughing.
Mm-hmm.
So what were you doing? What do you remember what I was doing? What would cause me to be, hit like that? And
Yeah, lightning doesn't strike anybody, right? What happens is there's an electrical pulse that comes from your crown, and it reaches up to this ball that comes down out of the sky. So that ball stops and waits until something picks it up, and then it shoots towards it, and then there go, you're electrocuted or whatever, or it hits whatever is putting that energy out. That's simple terms, of course. It's not scientific, but same thing with when you're doing like the qigong, or you're building energy, or you're giving a focus. You're sending that little cord out of your head, and whoever's out there that's looking to receive it will. So, you may have gotten a big rush and you weren't grounded and you fell back.
Interesting. And I wasn't hurt. I just,
yeah,
when it happened, I thought it was funny.
Yeah. Well, it tickles.
I mean, when you're talking about how each person does their body movement so different. I remember one time I couldn't do the warm-up exercises you were having us do across the yard, and so I just stood there next to you as you were telling people, what to do, what next movement to exercise going across the yard, and I was shocked to see that everybody was doing the movement different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did I don't know if you was involved in it, but we did it at one of those festivals. I think it was a Feng Shui festival.
Yeah.
And we had some Buddhist monks down there. I can't remember his name, Dunlop. Anyway, they were watching us do different form, or doing forms up on the stage. Yeah. And everybody was doing it their way, so to speak, right?
Yes.
But they were in a flow. And afterwards I got off, and like they were asking me, how can you get so many people to do it so identically? So see, what they were observing was a unison.
Really?
And especially since they were monks, they had a sense of what, the energy was about. And so that's what they saw. And so it's what we projected. It's what the body emanates, not what it reflects, is what you receive, So, I mean, there are those who really are out there, in a sense, in their movements, but that's what works for them, whether they're alien or whatever. But for generally, everybody does it pretty much the same. You're doing the same type of movement. It's just that when you do it, your body's reacting to the movement and reacting to the chi. And so it may appear different from us who are observing it within ourselves to somebody who out there in the audience may be observing it from just the whole.
And when I recently took Steve, I think it was in the springtime, to the park, because he's been away for 5-6 years. Mm-hmm. And we did Form 1 and Qigong together. And one of the things he said, what first out of his mouth was, "Wow, you do it so differently." And that one Feng Shui festival, you and I and Yvonne, mm-hmm. we got up on the dais and did the Form 1. And I know, we had our eyes closed, and toward the end, I noticed I was going faster than the two of you. That was in near the beginning. I think it was like 2004 for me. So,
Well, we did it that one time, what we called Form 1. And, we had one person on my property and another person down the road. And we started at the same time, and everybody finished at the same time. And it's about the environment. That's why doing it indoors isn't real productive, because you're not absorbing those things around you, because it's like sheet metal and sheetrock and all that good stuff that you're bouncing all this energy off of. So you can instruct inside, but you need to be performing in the outdoors so you can absorb your environment and the energy that's around, and it has a big effect on how you do the form. Also, times of year, the weather, everything else, where the moon is, all has effect. But if you start to look at it that way, then you start to lose the fun the enjoyment of discovery.
Yeah. I think that over the years, what was fun for me was to do the forms in different environments and in different places. Like up on top of Thunderbird Park here on the mountain, I would do it on top of those lava rocks about this big. Mm-hmm. That was fun. And then in Hawaii, back in 2007, I went to that black beach. Mm-hmm. And I was just on the beach, on the wet sand, and my feet sunk down about 6 inches. Mm-hmm. And the current from the ocean, I could feel that energy. And this is a place where you can't go swimming because you'll be taken out in the riptide. But I did the 4th form just so I could feel this while I'm experiencing this intense energy coming from the ocean. So that was fun. Mm-hmm. Then, of course, doing it, I did it on top of a horse trough. Mm-hmm. I would do that all the time, or on different little balconies, balconies of a little patio. And then, of course, the sand, the parks, and even gardens. I remember over in Switzerland, I stayed at a hotel where there was a large lily pond fountain in the middle of the courtyard area. And there was lots of grass and trees, and I really enjoyed doing that. My Tai Chi and Qigong there, and watching this cat came up and was going between my feet and sitting there just watching me. It's beautiful.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. And I remember when I was doing my Tai Chi there was a group of security guys, these security companies, mm-hmm. And they were watching me, and my friend said, "Wow, I've never seen that before." And I said, "I bet Z hasn't either." But yeah, and you know how you said we can take really anything and use it, like for a sword? Mm-hmm. I was using my hiking stick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all interpretive anyway. And it's, a lot of people are lucky enough to be what they call sensitives, that they'll feel something different in these different places that they go. And what's neat is that, when you meet a true one, they feel, really intense things in the middle of nowhere, nobody recognizes and stuff, not just these special places. And usually the special places are too contaminated to feel a sense to anyway, because everybody's going there for a different reason. And so the thing is when you become through the Tai Chi, it allows you to become a lot more sensitive to different areas, different energies. And once you do that, the next step is you can start to change those energies. You manipulate the energies. That's where you see a lot of the masters go. And as far as the movements, even when I was trained back in, 74, when I first really got into, in China, in Shaolin, was they taught from a book of, they had instructions, each move. And you would have, the first move here, and then you would have the second move here. But you didn't know how to get from here to there. And that's where the masters come in. Masters would teach you how to get from that move to the next move. And each of those little slight changes in how a person performs those moves is what becomes like, oh, the yang style or this style or that style. That's where those come from, is from somebody that was very popular as a master or whatever, and it was teaching them their form. But eventually it all comes down to, it was like, actually Kung Fu is like, not Jet Li, Bruce Lee created the thing called Jeet Kune Do. And that was basically interpretation, adapting to the moment, which is what Kung Fu is. There's no certain law. There's only, a form that you follow. That's why it's called a form. And so, it's just like that in life. I mean, everything works in that same fashion. And that's what you're actually learning through those processes, Qigong, Tai Chi, Kung Fu, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
I had 4 questions.
That's all.
Nothing about aliens or any of that crazy stuff?
No. Well, you wrote your book, Table of Ancients. This is an old version. Yeah. I know the cover has changed.
Yeah, it's original.
And this is your story about becoming one of the members of the Table of Ancients.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
I don't know. I was along for the ride. Isn't that the way that it happens? Any of these significant events in our lives. I mean, basically I was chosen as a replacement or had the opportunity to become one of the Table of Ancients, which there's 10 in the world at any time since the beginning of time, they say. And it's real representative of the Black Hats or the Black Sect, Buddhists, and which a lot of people don't even know about, who are the mystics. And so each one of the masters had opportunities to teach me, and the way they taught me was, it was usually life or death, and it was a test of spirituality. There was many tests that I went through, but like one in particular is they put me in this tiny little bamboo pyramid, and I was there for hours and hours and days even, and I was thirsty, I was losing consciousness and everything else. The next thing I know, all of a sudden, out of the blue, there's these shoots that come through, and they would hit me, and I'd go unconscious, and then again and again and again. And the whole idea behind it was that I'd become aware enough that I knew before they came, and so that I could stop them. And once I reached that level, then I was, free to get it back out of the pyramid, which wasn't much help. I mean, I was so cramped and so, stiff, I couldn't move anyway, and so weak. But a lot of that, like the mysticism, has to do with starvation, when you deprive yourself of anything. And then you can see and have magical powers. Of course, that's not healthy. There's a lot of in the old Chinese mountains where you'd find these people that cave themselves in. And once a day they get like a little grain of rice, and they live off of that, and they live off of meditation, meditation. But I have no idea why. I mean, you either get it or you don't, right?
Yeah. And isn't that like being a breatharian?
Yeah.
Extreme,
I imagine.
Yeah. Because like we talked about before, we're here to be human.
Yeah. We're already spiritual.
Huh? Yeah.
We're already spiritual, yeah. There's no need to look for it.
Yeah. And we're everything anyway, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think the important thing is for a lot of people to understand is that to argue. And because, I mean, I call it argue, people would call it discussion or whatever, but one of the best times, like in our Tai Chi classes, and most addictive thing is that we would sit around and argue, for an hour or whatever. And we could do that without fear of judgment. I mean, of course you're supposed to judge. I mean, it's insane that you don't judge, because how else can you define who you are? It's just that you're not judging that person for what they believe. But you could also argue any point that you wanted to without hate. And that's missing from our society. So everybody has to either go along or whatever, or else you're a nutcase, or you're hateful or something. They immediately, the people who don't believe in judgment suddenly start judging you, which is kind of interesting. But,
well, it's like what I do with my clients in my QHHT sessions. In the initial interview, we spend 3 or 4 hours together, and I listen to their life story, and then we discuss the things that they're having challenges with. And I kind of push them a little bit about facing their truth. And sometimes they could be interpreted as judgment, but I think it's very healthy to really look at what you're doing or how you're receiving it. And maybe there's another way to perceive it.
Yeah. It's like there is no guru. If you follow a guru, you're just treading water.
Yeah.
But everybody may have something valuable to say. I've met homeless people who are addicts and everything else, and suddenly, just out of nowhere, they'll come up with this just amazing thought. And so our masters are everywhere, and it's up to us what we can choose and pick what we want. But as far as gurus, I mean, you're just wasting your time if you want to follow somebody in particular and believe everything they have to say.
Because all the answers are within us.
Yeah, we already got all the answers.
Time to dive in deep and be willing to face our truth. And sometimes we don't like what we see, but I want to hear it. I want to process it and become better. I don't want to sit here and do the same old stupid thing over and over again.
Yeah, seek not to know the answer, but to understand the question.
Okay.
And that there is only one truth, but everybody that finds it perceives it differently.
Yeah. Talk about that just briefly here, the concept of understanding the question.
Well, you got to know what you're being asked before you can find the answer. But if you know what's being asked, you already know the answer.
So that means whatever you're asking, you have to know what you're asking.
Well, when you hear a question that you're to answer, well, if you've heard the question, then you already know what the answer is. But you have to understand what's being asked.
Can you give me an example?
Well, a simple one is like the CIA, one of the CIA exams. It was, everybody got in there and we had one question. And it was, have you ever, thought about how to commit the perfect crime? And, the answer, it's simple. Duh. We all have, right? Whether we had any intention on following through with it or not. But that's not what people reacted to. They didn't understand the question, so they all said no. Because they wanted to be like an agent or something. They wanted to be accepted. So if they had started, if they thought that if they had thought about creating the perfect crime, then they wouldn't be accepted. And it was, they didn't have time to think about it. They just had to answer.
Yeah.
I was the only one that passed.
Uh-huh. And could we look at that question, think in your mind, well, yeah, you would want to know how to commit the perfect crime so that you can figure things out.
Yeah.
How that crime was committed.
If you had time to think about it.
Yeah.
But when you're in a pressure situation, you get nervous or whatever it may be. Yeah. It's like if someone asks you, how do you cure cancer? And well, the first thing you would have to know, right, is what caused it. Yeah. And so it just goes on and on. So it takes you down the right path. But if you start looking at possible ways of curing the cancer without knowing what creates it.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
Because there's many creations that cause
Yeah.
cancer. Yeah.
And like the most complicated questions in the world have a very simple answer. But we have to go through this whole complicated way of finding our way around to what we already knew.
Yeah, and I think it was some type of astrology or numerology. Yeah, numerology. That's my numbers matched up to. I always do things the hard way. Thick skull.
Yeah. It's like when I went back to Shaolin one time, and I had won the world championship and all that, and I just had no satisfaction. I went back there to try to find what it was I was missing, and they told me I was growing marrow from the shoulders up. That's the way they call the bonehead, I guess.
Well, can we talk about the quest?
Yeah.
The quest. Here it is. And this is your passion, your mission.
Yeah. I've got a YouTube site that because it's, it takes a lot of time. I never stop talking about when somebody asks me a question about it. And so I got started there. But essentially what happened was, I got introduced to it. I witnessed some guys that were going to do a rescue and all that good stuff, and I knew that they were going to die. And that my experience with logistics and things like that from my current job at the time would be able to help them. And so I offered that help. And what ended up happening, the last girl in there to be carried out was only 4 years old. And, it just kind of shocked me, long story short, because I had just discovered here I am in Cambodia, and this, these streets that were all dirt and everything is definitely third world. And I see all these tourists coming through, these older guys and stuff. And it really, I couldn't figure out what the hell they were doing there. This is my town to go relax in, not theirs. And anyways, I followed one of them one night, discovered what was going on, that there was these child brothels. And that's how I came across this priest that was about to rescue. And then back and forth, I was thinking about, how, like people always say, well, if there was a God, then why would he allow something like this to happen? And it's because it's an opportunity. It's what we came here to be, and it's human. And, we should always expect, if there's somebody in need, to give them a hand. And when we're in need, that there would be a hand there for us. So you start to understand, how can we allow these things to go on when there's something that we can do about it? And so since then, we're the #1 in the field. And it's amazing that as time progressed, I couldn't find anybody that knew the things that I knew. And so we've hit so many things. I'm sure there's other things that are out there, but we know, like in my book, I talk about a lot of the types of human trafficking or child sex trafficking that they do, and how we can end it. And I know we can. And as far as I know, nobody out there is better than we are. We just passed 1,600 rescues. And one of the big things that's different about us, the retention rate of these kids are normally about 8 to 12%. That's the best. And we have 100% since we first started. We know where every one of our child are. And, it's shocking the things that you'll learn about it. And I've been taught not to talk about the absolute truth so much because it's so dark. But, if people ask, I can tell them. But when you realize how horrible this is and how we're allowing it to happen, it's the second largest business in the world. Drugs are the only one that's bigger. And there's so much money that they're making in this, and it's everywhere. And here in the States, I don't necessarily work, at least out in the open, because for me as a private citizen to go out, I would spend years in jail to do a rescue. Quick example, I rescued a 14-year-old who got nabbed at one of those raves. And basically I went in and put a guy to sleep, grabbed her, threw her over my shoulder, threw her in my car, drove 2 hours back to her parents' house. And the cops and the FBI had been aware of it for 2 weeks. And I went down there, and within, 3 hours roundabout trip, I had their kid back. And for what I did, I got assault, breaking and entering, kidnapping of a minor, and so on and so forth. So basically, for an average person, there's not a whole lot that you can do other than observe and report. When you see something, and know what the signs are to educate yourself of what tends to be human trafficking. And there are so many that they've confused it. Like these charities that don't really know what they're talking about have confused it. They think that, a prostitute who gets mad at her pimp and turns him in for human trafficking is human trafficking. It goes that far because they just don't understand what it's about. I've been to charity events and I get everybody's attention, but the problem is that the bosses there get scared and they try to run me off because they're afraid that I'm going to take part of their money, and that's their paycheck, so they don't want to share. The whole point I went there was to share stuff that maybe they could teach me things. I could teach them things, how to be more aware of it, know what is real and what isn't, and what to do about it. Trump is the first president in history that's actually created legislation that allows the police to go after them. And it's primarily the FBI. And it's just been overwhelming. I think the last I heard, there was 9,000 rescued since that time, and all these big guys taken down. But it's such a corrupt system, from the judges, the politicians, and you're starting to see a lot of that come out, with Epstein. I've been harping on Epstein for years and years. And it wasn't until Trump brought about this fight against human trafficking that he's finally been exposed, him and Bill Clinton and such. So it's everywhere. And we're doing something about it. We do it over in Asia because we can kind of create our own law. And we also can expose things for what's going on, how it happens. And it's all connected. It doesn't matter where you go and do it, but we're actually making a difference there. It's similar to if I would choose to go to Africa, I really couldn't make a difference there because of the political situation in most of those places is changing so fast all the time that you rescue some kids and, it's not going to be long and they're back out doing the same thing. They just have new owners, that sort of thing. And so I've picked an area where I know I can make a difference and that the awareness is starting to come about so that, it's helping us.
And, those charges against you in the U.S., those didn't stick, right?
Well, I was never charged. I called a friend of mine, and he's a police officer. That's the other thing. It's very hard to talk to any of the police officers because, number one, they really don't understand it so much because they're only getting limited amounts of information about what it's about. And then you have, but he talked to me because he's a friend. And he says, for what you just did, that would be about 7 years in prison. Even though that everything was on the up and up, yeah. But I broke laws in order to extract her. And the whole point I went down there was these parents begged me to go down there. I went down there and I just hung out and I saw all the players and I saw an opportunity and I wanted to know more. So I walked up into the business. And when I walked into the business, I could see off to the right, the girl. So nothing was going to stop me from grabbing her,
And the other cool thing you talked about before is that the quest is making a difference in the Asian countries, in the little villages, that you're changing the villages, that they're not having child sex trafficking anymore, or those bordellos.
Well, there was one city I wanted to prove it. I took $45,000 of my own money, my life savings, and I went in to prove it. There were 6 brothels in this city. And I went in there and explained with my team and explained to them, that there wasn't going to be any more child brothels. And they sort of laughed. They didn't really take us too serious. And I told them, but by taking these out, I said, I'll make sure that you find a new way to steal your money. And, to replace the losses from what they were making, because the police and the government officials are usually involved. And so that's what we did, was we wiped them out. We also brought in people then that had things that they could sell that were indigenous or, culturalistic, and things that tourists would want to see and buy. And we helped those set up those businesses. And then I went out and I brought in, started with 3 different tour companies. And the next thing you know, there's like 20 of them coming into this place. They're making so much money, and the cops and stuff are able to steal enough money from the business owners that they're making so much money that they don't even think about having another brothel there. And this was years ago. And since then, several gangs have tried to move in and put in brothels, and basically town ran them out of town because they don't need them,
Yeah.
And that's how simple it is. It's really based. you know, they use the excuses, all the excuses, like culture and everything else, why they, you know, use these little kids that way, why the parents sell their kids and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's money, you know.
So what does the quest need?
Well, money. we need steady income sources. You know, most charities, when they start, they've already got a lot of money, and we basically don't have any funds. So we're always scrapping just to get, you know, enough money to do a rescue. And it's not necessarily cheap. It's not necessarily expensive. Depends on the situation, or if we did a fundraiser last year where we brought in some money, and we were able to go to places that we hadn't been able to go to before because we were able to pay off officials. And that's one of the things that's necessary in order to accomplish what it is that we need, you know. And then we were able to set up little places throughout our battle area, I guess you would call it, where we would have supplies like medical supplies. We'd have, you know, extra tires, gasoline, things that we were going to need for a rescue that we could go and get, rather than have to, you know, hurry up and go find, you know, before, you know, the girls were gone or whatever. And so we were able to establish those things, those routes and vehicles and such. We also need, you know, like a spokesperson that we haven't been able to find yet, because in order to get to a celebrity, you need to know somebody to introduce you. And there's really no other way. I mean, you can write their manager and those things, or try to hope to stalk them, but we're not going to do anything like that. So we just need introductions. And we also need like large businesses that would help support us, as well as, you know, teach people, or, you know, show them what's going on in this world and how we can change the world. And that's another thing, is a lot of people always come up to me and they tell me these great ideas that they have to change the world, but they never manifest. And, you know, just to be able to sponsor one of our kids or help one of our kids out, which is $20 a month, and they'll have 3 meals a day. They have, you know, schooling, they get clothes, they have friends, and they have a safe place. Plus we check out any source that they came from, if their parents sold them or not, whether that we can give them back to them or not, or else we have to go through the social route. And then we have to find places to put them. You know, if somebody's really generous, they'll buy us an orphanage.
Yeah.
But we'll fill it in a matter of days. I mean, it's that easy.
Yeah.
You know? The only thing that's stopping us is having enough places to put the kids.
Yeah. And the men and women that are doing these rescues, they're doing it for free, aren't they? They're all volunteers.
Yeah, they do it mostly out of their own pockets.
Yeah.
We got nuns, we got monks, we got citizens, we got hundreds of people that volunteer that are spotters, but they don't have any specific talents. But they do have what we need in order. I mean, if you go to our website, you can see how we do every one of our rescues, and it's kind of military style. We're going to win regardless. You know, sometimes things happen. You know, we've had 5 of our people killed. I've been shot multiple times, stabbed, and you know, we keep going. But then we have our team, which is like ex-military, ex-private security contractors, those sort of things, that are all very highly skilled. And most of them that come to us are broken in some way, PTSD or whatever it may be. And the funny thing is those with the PTSD, they do run rescue and they're already cured. I mean, I think it's because of they've gotten so trained, you know, of what they're doing and how they're doing it, and that they don't know the results and they don't know why they were doing it, those sort of things, and the things that they see. But when they go work for us and they rescue these little kids, it's obvious what's happened, and it changes them forever. So you want to change the world, be a part of our team. There's so many things you can do.
They must find a new purpose in life through the rescue of the children. And so they must have like an internal redemption, so that everything that they've been trained and taught, they've done in their life, all brings to this one moment, and they have the ability to do it over and over again. It must give them such joy to meet these amazing little children.
Yeah, and it's things that you can't explain. I mean, it's completely beyond words. It was just like that little kid that I rescued. There wasn't hardly any room in the van, you know, and I'm holding this 4-year-old on my lap, and I'm trying not to look at her. I've taken my mask off and everything, and I'm keeping looking out the window. And it was a long ride to get to one of the safe houses, and where we could clean them up, explain things, blah, blah, blah. And during that time, I'm sitting there, I'm not going to look at her. I'm not going to look at her, sort of thing. And I could feel these eyes just beaming on me. And she had settled down by now, where she was pretty scared at first. So I don't know why I turned and I looked at her eye to eye, and I was totally screwed right from that moment on. I mean, I didn't get up off my butt for a little while, but eventually we got going. And by 2014, we were just really getting into it.
Thank you, Z. And this is a book that people can buy on Amazon.com. This is your mission. This helps explain to people what's really going on in the world, and how the quest is making a difference where others aren't.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll put the links on the back end of this video.
Yeah, great.
Can go and make donations right to your website. They can go on the quest.org, is it?
Yeah, the quest, ECSS.
Yeah.
.org.
.org, there it is. And then there's a donate button. They can just donate whatever they can. And then if there's someone out there that can start a project, or, you know, get money together and contact you in any way. So. And
we're about to launch. We haven't launched yet, but it's going to be Them Too movement. Hashtag Get Them Too. And it's going to be about saving these little kids. And, you know, where all you got to do is, you know, you'll see it when we launch it, but hold a piece of cardboard up, take your picture and post it. That's all. I mean, that's doing something, you know, and it doesn't cost anything. So. And
people can go to your YouTube channel and listen to you talk about each of these missions, these rescue missions. You get, you know, firsthand information of what is actually occurring, and the successes, and some of the things that are hard to deal with. Yeah.
I post every single one of our rescues on our website under rescue stories. And then a lot of people don't like to read it. So YouTube is very boring unless you just turn it on and listen to it, you know, but I do as a favor to everybody. And I guess it's kind of addictive for people, but they want to hear how we did it and what we did. And so that's what I do, is it's explained. I read the stories, the ones that I post on the website. So.
All right. Thank you, Z.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Anything else?
Blessings.
Blessings. Okay. Talk to you again.
All right. Enjoy.
All right. Bye.
Bye.